playing of the national anthem, and remain standing, please, for the invocation thereafter.
Oh, land of beauty, our country where peace abounds, thy children stand free on the strength of will and love, with good in all our schools, St. Kitts and Nevis. A nation bound together with a common destiny. As stalwarts we stand for justice and liberty, with wisdom and truth. We will serve and honor thee. No sword nor spear can conquer, for God will sure defend. His blessing shall forever to posterity
Invoke God's presence.
Thank you. Father, we give you thanks for this opportunity that we can think about humanity. We pray for your divine help today as individuals dialogue to bring the best possible solution, strategies, techniques, equipment, building structure, all the resources that are necessary and needful to preserve our health. Bless today's session in Jesus' name.
Acting Fire Chief, Mr. Rommel Williams, Executive Director of the St. Kitts Nevis Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Ms. Sanya Aline, other distinguished guests, students, ladies and gentlemen, members of the media, good morning. And welcome to the National Dialogue on Indoor Air Quality, Understanding the Challenges and Finding Solutions. Today we are gathered here not just as professionals, stakeholders, or community members, but as individuals with a shared responsibility. Because what we breathe in our schools, offices, homes, and public spaces affects all of us. I am Dr. Marcus Natter, your guide through today's agenda. I stand before you as a trained chemical and materials engineer and someone who has had the privilege of working within the realms of radiation detection and measurement, sound management of chemicals and waste, environmental protection, and climate resiliency. In a recent former life, I was also a member of the St. Kitts Nevis Bureau of Standards, where we took air quality seriously, very seriously. This is not just a government issue, a political issue, or a private sector concern. This is a national issue. And that's why we are here in a national dialogue. Our ear, your ear, should be a national priority. The goal of today's dialogue is simple yet vital: to develop tangible, actionable solutions. These will not be left to linger in reports or fade away in minutes. They will be forwarded to a national task force, a group committed to developing a national indoor air quality policy for St. Kitts and Nevis. Colleagues, we are here to turn tragedy into triumph. The unfortunate loss of an iconic educational institution, the Bastia High School, from its original site, largely due to political maneuverings across the divide, has ignited debates over the years and has validated this much-needed conversation. The buzzword these days is mold, but this dialogue is about much more. It's about ensuring the air we breathe indoors is safe, healthy, and free from pollutants that compromise our well-being. It's also about climate change. We cannot talk about indoor air quality without acknowledging its connection to the broader environmental crisis we are facing. Poor indoor air quality is part of the climate challenge, and what we do here today will contribute to our nation's ongoing journey toward becoming a sustainable island state. As of January 25th this year, the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards proudly announced that it is now internationally accredited to ISO 17025 in air quality. Let me repeat that. The St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards is now internationally accredited to ISO 17025 in air quality. I think that deserves a tremendous round of applause. This monumental achievement, this is a monumental achievement, not just for the Bureau, but for our nation. We are now home to the first internationally accredited air quality lab in the Caribbean and in the Western Hemisphere. This accreditation is not just a badge of honor. It's a responsibility to raise the standards for all labs across our federation, public and private, and ensure that we are producing the highest quality, most reliable data for the people in this country. Indoor air quality may not make the headlines every day, but it directly impacts our health, productivity, and economy. Whether we realize it or not, it affects how we live and how we work. Today, we are bringing together experts from various fields, government officials, architects, environmental health specialists, students, and businesses to confront the challenges we face and offer real solutions. Solutions that will not just protect us today, but safeguard our children tomorrow. This is an event where dialogue must lead to action. You will hear from people on the front lines, those already tackling indoor air quality issues, and we will engage in meaningful, solution-oriented discussions. This is our moment to lay the groundwork for a future where every building, whether public or private, offers a healthy environment for all. Let's not forget that this event is timely, coming at a moment when we are intensifying our commitment to becoming a truly sustainable island state. The decisions we make today will influence policies and practices across government agencies, businesses, and even in our homes. I would like to take a moment to thank the exceptional organizing committee, Ms. Sanya Allen from the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, Mr. Stuart Laplace, Director of the Bureau of Standards, Mr. Genevieve Mills, Acting Labor Commissioner from the Department of Employment and Labor, Mr. Oren Martin from the Department of Environmental Health, Mr. Jermaine Mike from the Bureau of Standards, and Ms. Vashni Bell from the Cabinet Secretariat. It has been a pleasure leading this brilliant team, and their hard work has made today possible. Please give them a round of applause. I urge each of you here to actively engage in today's dialogue. Ask questions, share your experiences, and most importantly, think about solutions we can adopt as a nation. After all, this isn't just about what's in the air. It's about clearing the path for a healthier, more sustainable future for us all. With that, it's my absolute pleasure to welcome all of you once again, those in this ballroom and those viewing and listening online. Thank you. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, I am extremely pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Steve D. Whitaker. Dr. Steve Whitaker is a distinguished global health investigator and educator whose work spans critical areas such as climate change adaptation, air quality, public health, and biomedical research. Dr. Whitaker has a wealth of experience in study design and exposure risks assessment, as well as in leading community and regional research projects. His areas of expertise include not only environmental health, but also broader public health concerns such as mental health, nutrition, and health access. Dr. Whitaker holds a PhD in environmental health sciences from the prestigious Yale School of Public Health, where he also served as a postdoctoral associate in global health. He earned his Master's of Science in Environmental Health and Safety Management from the Rochester Institute of Technology and a Bachelor of Arts in Environmental Engineering from Yale University. In his career, Dr. Whitaker has been at the forefront of public health research and consultancy, working on projects ranging from climate change to academic inefficiencies and even addressing interpersonal violence. He has played an instrumental role in numerous local and regional initiatives, including climate change projects focused on women in the Caribbean, environmental impact assessments, and educational programs aimed at fostering the next generation of scientists. His commitment to advancing STEM education and supporting both public and private sector initiatives is truly inspiring. Beyond his academic and professional accomplishments, Dr. Whitaker is a multifaceted, creative, an amateur author, playwright, poet, and graphic designer. He brings this same creative energy to his research and advocacy, pushing the boundaries of how we think about health, the environment, and our role in protecting them. He's one of us. He's a son of the soil, hailing from Sandy Point. We are honored to have him with us today, and we look forward to hearing his insights on the critical topic of indoor air quality, which is also relevant to our ongoing dialogue on environmental health. Dr. Whitaker, it is an honor to have you with us today. Let us give him a warm welcome as he comes.
Good morning, everybody. Forgive me, it's quite bright. Allow me to adopt the previously established protocol and greetings, and thereafter express my sincere gratitude to the organizers, and especially just now, Dr. Natter, for the glowing introduction that overlooks my many, many glaring failures and flaws. However, also, please allow me to extend greetings to those of us uniquely affected by air pollutants. As an asthmatic with allergies, a runny nose, watery eyes, and a tight chest are very common to me. I so vow to use my time here today and my limited lung capacity to make a case for a cleaner indoor and outdoor environment. Special shout out to my daughter Emma, my nieces, nephews, and all other children who so often seem to be sneezing, wheezing, or coughing. I encourage you, when doing so, please cover your mouths, blow your nose, wash your hands, and take your medicines. That goes for the rest of the adults in the room as well. Let us begin our present conversation with a brief history. In mid-July of 1995, I was only 11 years old when Soufriere Hills in Montserrat erupted. Though only or about 50 miles away from where we are actually sitting here today in our federation, the deadly and displacing explosion threw darkish plumes and feathery ash out and over onto our island, and including my street in Sandy Point. My family tried their best to close their doors and their windows, all of their louvers to protect our home, but the embers found their way inside regardless. I learned then, as many of us have learned by now, that it's sometimes impossible to keep the bad air out. In fact, in the Caribbean, the outdoors often makes its way in and stays for a very long time, like an unwanted house guest. 20 years later, at the age of 30, I started to study climate change, air quality, and health in the Caribbean. With the help of many friends and family and colleagues at Yale University, CFBC, Transglobal Engineering, SKBRF, HERC, and so many more, including government and non-governmental agencies, I spent over a decade evaluating air pollution in St. Kitts Nevis against the backdrop of a warming world. With just a few handheld monitors, we braved the hot sun and the cold rain to measure priority pollutants such as ozone, nitrogen dioxide, and particulate matter, or what we casually refer to as dust. We applied spatial statistics to create exposure maps like this one. And this one for PM10 allows us to estimate resident exposure according to where we live. And for both gaseous and particulate matters, we now know that in a lot of cases, outdoor air quality, it doesn't respect boundaries, but it does have bias and differential according to where we reside. Right here on this map, I want you to think about what parish you live in St. Kitts and Nevis. And although I'm not going to poll you with a show of hands, what is very clear for PM10 or dust is that on the western portion of St. Kitts and Nevis, with the darker portions highlighted, we seem to have, unfortunately, a vulnerability to a high exposure of dust. Now, although admittedly the focus of my research group and collaborators would have been the outdoors, we never lost sight of what was indoors. In various questionnaires, we probed activities and events that can happen inside or close to our classrooms, our kitchens, our offices, bathrooms, workshops, restaurants, etc., from a myriad of sources. For example, we ascertained additional data such as the presence of fire and unpaved roads, agricultural lands, and dumping sites in our communities. Curtains, carpets, which are a reservoir for chemical and biological agents. We captured the amount of time indoors, as well as health status and disease. And at this point, not to correct you, Dr. Nato, but wherever your statistics of 90% came from, that might be global. But here in the Caribbean, because of our climate, we're probably closer to 50 to 75% indoors, at least from my research. I could be wrong. But this is a dialogue. We're here to guide each other, not to correct or undermine. We're here to have an intelligent conversation and exchange. Now, having done these indoor air pollution assessments, basic as they might seem to you, what we found was, despite the best efforts of people to clean and to maintain order and to keep the dirtier, filthy, and more antagonistic aspects of the outdoor world from coming in, the effects of the outdoor world were unavoidable, especially when it comes to our effect on health. Specifically, lung function, which we estimated using a handheld spirometer. We looked at how a person's lung capacity would be affected by several activities and events, both indoors and outdoors. This next graph, you don't have to be a scientist to read it. I will just describe it. It shows, to some extent, the comparison of persons who, affected by PM10 in residential areas, might have lowered lung capacity. And if lower than 70%, that could be the case, although I'm not a doctor, for you're diagnosing with certain respiratory disease. In addition to particulate matter, and I'll hold people here in your minds, for those of you who had chikungunya like me, you would have remembered it was worse than any cold or flu that you would have ever experienced. Researchers shown us that there's a discompensation, or rather decompensation, when it comes to our actual biological organ function. And for that reason, for some people after suffering the disease, they also, unfortunately, had an observed reduced lung function. So here, what the point I'm trying to make is, it's not just about the mechanical or the chemical, it's not about solids or gases, but biologicals play a role as well. Also, on the other side of best practices or worst habits, pollution and irritants could be generated from everyday or indoor activities like meal prep. How many of us, in trying to cook our food, have burnt it on the stove? How many of us have a smoker in our household or our offices? How many of us have callously, or at least casually, combined household disinfectants, not knowing that you're creating a hazard? Or maybe the most common one would be use of generous spritzes, I will say, of insecticides to kill a spider or a fly. How many of us have indoor pets that leave dander on furniture and clothes? All of these things are things we take for granted in terms of activities, behaviors, and events that do so much to permeate and saturate our indoor spaces. Combine that with maybe some poor ventilation, inadequate maintenance, and laissez-faire or casual maladaptive behaviors, we are not making our indoor situation and scenario better. But let's step back and go back to the inextricable link between indoor air quality and outdoor air pollution in the Caribbean. Even if we improved our systems and habits, as aforementioned, again, our year-round warm temperatures and high electricity bills means that our windows and doors are going to be left open to the elements. As such, we cannot help, as a matter of comfort, but to let air in, and sometimes the pollutants, they get in because they are carried in the winds and in tow. Of course, I'm not here to argue that every single gaseous molecule or part of a dust particle will be emitted from an outdoor grill during barbecue or a tailpipe, and that it will make its way into our work and living spaces. Not all living spaces and work areas will have vehicular exhaust be a problem. Although, for those of you here from CFBC, you can attest to the fact that the many buses and big trucks and tour operators that travel alongside the street next to the labs often infiltrate the nearby classrooms, bringing noise and sometimes unwanted exhaust. What I can say with absolute certainty is that residents in Sandy Point, close to coal keels, could not shut their windows quickly or fast enough to keep out the fumes. I have observed those living in the Connery community suffering when parts of the landfill spontaneously combust or reignite. I have heard the accounts of people in rural areas, their olfactory offended often by the smell of fecal matter from ruminant animals. And as much as I see the benefits of things like mosquito fogging and termite treatments, that sometimes we employ in and around our homes, such practices can also be irritants for the young, the elderly, the infirmed, and those like myself with respiratory illnesses and conditions. And now, of course, I have to talk about the other side of my research and background, which is climate change. With more frequent heat waves and intense tropical storms, we're unfortunately going to be forced indoors a lot more against our will. We anticipate that once indoors, our dependency on temperature control technologies like fans or AC, which we should have had today, we're going to operate and behave differently. And we're going to build differently. And our windows and doors are going to open a little bit differently, if not to a lesser extent, if at all, when we have temperature control technologies such as air conditioning. We estimate, persons who I've collaborated with and other researchers before me, smarter and better, that this configuration might mean that whatever pollution gets in, stays in to a greater extent, and will stay in more than we will ever be able to get it out. Furthermore, regarding heat, we predict more wear and tear of indoor fixtures. Heat-accelerated weathering and breaking down of small pieces of furnishings. We're talking breaking off and potentially harmful gases, VOCs, volatile organics, might off-gas from the adhesives, the old flame retardants, peeling paints, cracked tiles. Dust can come from many areas, cracked tiles as aforementioned. And these will emanate at a higher rate than ever before if it's not already happening due to a warming climate affecting our indoor and outdoor environs. Now, those of you here and everywhere else tuning in might say that you do not think it an inconvenience to be forced indoors. You love your bedrooms, your office is completely comfortable. But I ask you to think back to March 2020 in the COVID-19 lockdowns and quarantines. That was not so comfortable. Imagine compounding that discomfort and the challenge to your mental health and well-being with your inability to breathe comfortably. Now, before I proceed to recommendations, I want to speak briefly about moles in school. I am no expert on moles, so I will just say what I know, which is that they're born of spores and thrive with the right intersection or combination of moisture, humidity, heat. These are parts of the recipe, but it also depends on the type of mole for which there are many. There's some featured right here on this slide. Again, me not being an expert, I can tell you that some of the most harmful types include Cladosporidium and Aspergillus. They're very common, and they have different toxicity and allergenicity, meaning they can cause allergic reactions in people who are particularly susceptible, but still can have a very adverse outcome on many of us who consider ourselves to be healthy. Of course, there are other factors to consider: exposure route, health status, and persons exposed, because in the end, although mold is a hot topic and we should talk about it, we should include it in our conversation, not all moles are created or antagonized equally. Regarding our individual entities, I'm going to focus on educational institutions because I was a teacher for many years in this country and in the US, and I consider it to be one of the most important spaces in any of our nations, including the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Let's go back to May 26, 2014, when the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, submitted a report on the Bastia High School crisis. Echoing a previous report co-authored by my father, Dr. Milton C. Whitaker, you should call him doctor, not me, I'm just Steve, there was something that was clearly in the air that affected the staff and students in terms of their respiratory well-being and actually their dermal health. Since then, movements have been made, improvements uttered and tried. Relocations have been part of it. But the original campus, as mentioned by Dr. Nato, has been shut down and demolished. Others, while operating, continue to have some partial or temporary closures due to various antagonists: concrete dust, emissions, nearby transport, chemical gases, and biological antagonists such as the aforementioned mold. I have learned and heard so much having taken this job and have it advertised via various media houses, the concerns of parents and students, administrators in schools like Keon, educators in Sadler's Secondary. I have seen for myself how dripping ACs and leaking pipes at CFBC, a campus that has been mostly neglected for 20 years since I was a student there, have precipitated into noxious smells, and you guessed it, mold. And the list goes on, because clearly we could have been doing and should be doing a much better job of monitoring, evaluating, and responding to indoor air qualities. Aforementioned, if you're so inclined, you can try to diagnose what kind of mold that's in the biology lab at CFBC. That is not what we're here for today, but it's part of the dialogue, knowing what the antagonists and threats are. So now that we have some sense of the problem, what are our options? What can we do as a nation and as stakeholders to strengthen and standardize our controls for indoor air environments? How can we effectively and sustainably treat problems of this nature as the world evolves and warms, sometimes to our detriment? Well, because I mentioned the landfill, we could move Connery down. At least one man who believed that we could do it said it. And in an ideal world, I genuinely believe it might have made an impact for the people of Connery. But unfortunately, if I take a look in the mirror and put a mirror up to us here today and everywhere, we are more generally a people of good ideas, but not always good ideals. And so, because we're not perfect, we're going to have this dialogue. The landfill will stay for now, and we will have our conversation. But seriously, the prescriptions which are connected and independent are as follows and presented on the screen, which is First, we must invest in more active and passive monitoring systems of both ambient and indoor air spaces. From the laboratories in our schools to the offices in ministry buildings, to the restaurants and grocery stores where we get our food, to the conference rooms, continuously and at least routinely having assessments should be installed and or put in place so we have the data to distinguish good from bad, or at least numbers that can help us infer what we're actually experiencing and breathing. Second, we must liberate and leverage the existing data. I think it's very convenient, the practice that we import and impart a lot of information from environmental studies done outside of the Federation, sometimes outside of the Caribbean. What we need is more local stakeholders, government and non-government, to push for more research so we can better capture the details and dynamics of our own context here in this country. Third, we evaluate with the support, but we should also evaluate the support because not all support or help is equal. We must have relevant academic and private and public partners who will help us to assess how various pollutants affect the health and well-being of the citizens in St. Kitts and Nevis. And not just for asthmatics like myself, not just for us canary in the mines, for our children especially, but for adults and older folks as well, because we should be assessing what takes place in our indoor environments, whether it be schools or homes, factories, nail salons, health clinics, workshops, auto mechanic shops, the vehicles themselves, and even the bars some of us frequent on weekends. Fourth, with the environmental and etiological or epidemiological data in hand, we don't just produce reports that will get stuck on a shelf, as Dr. Natta said. We're not here to put something out, publish it in an article, or have it sit in anybody's drawers. We pursue actual, meaningful regulations, standards, policies, and action plans. And these action plans should dictate how we build, how we configure our buildings, how we use our buildings, how we clean and maintain our indoor spaces, not to be enduring anything undermining or unfortunate when it comes to indoor air quality. Yes, I'm not overlooking the fact that we currently have trained engineers, contractors, maintenance departments, teams and swarms of technicians and custodians who have done their due diligence when possible. But not all training is equal, and not all capacity and care helps persons to be true when it comes to environmental stewardship and protection. And sometimes those who do have the capacity and do care and do have a conscience are sometimes stymied or interrupted by their colleagues, supervisors, and administrators at a higher level because of cost constraints or bureaucracy. Fifth, as Brian McKnight said, we start at one. We go back to the beginning, we invest resources in the processes that work and eliminate the control policies that do not work. All the while, we seek meaningful consultations and dialogues with all stakeholders, much like we're doing today, with the exception that, Marriott's great, comfortable, very beautiful, but this is not accessible to most of our stakeholders in St. Kitts Nevis. Also, if we're going to brand things and wear t-shirts, let's make sure it's beyond just someone wearing something for a day that they will end up wearing in their yards or to bed at the end of the day. In closing, I sincerely hope that I've met at least part of my mandate. What is assigned to me today is just the beginning, for this conversation does not end with me, even though to some extent, some people's mind, it began, which is not true. I also hope that you've learned a little bit more about your exposures, indoor and outdoor, and how they interface and interact, so that you can learn more beyond the discussion initiated today. I want to again extend gratitude and thank yous, not only to the organizers and experts in attendance, many of them who I've known for quite a bit in my life, but my family, co-workers, former teachers, trainers, lecturers, advisors, and the many, many persons who reached out to me having seen my picture, stopped me in the street, clowned me at work, to complain, comment, and contribute details to this presentation today. Their indoor experiences, their air quality challenges are part of our dialogue and should not be censored, but integrated, because clearly this conversation is long overdue and will likely be enduring as persons impatiently await action. I hope we leave here together more mindful of the role we can all play in a more sustainable management of our environment and our health within the context of indoor air quality. For now, I bid you adieu, good luck, Godspeed, and let us work toward a higher environmental standard and a better future. I thank you.
Let us thank our keynote speaker, Dr. Whitaker, one more time, please. I think he has nicely set the stage for the rest of the presenters to come and the discussions that we will have a little later in our breakout sessions. At this time, we are going to go into some pointed panel discussion, panelists who will deal with some pointed topics. Each panelist will give their presentations. I ask you to note your questions, and we will have a question and answer period after all of the presenters have completed their presentations. So please make your notes and for your questions and comments for that thereafter. Mr. German Mike is, before I go into the presentations, I wanted to do one quick exercise on Menti again. Can I have the next slide? Sorry. So we started this a little earlier. So this is the next question is, what comes to mind when you think of indoor air quality? What comes to mind? One word or a short phrase, you can put that in. Maybe one word. Let's try one word. What comes to mind when you think of indoor air quality? For those who joined us after we started this, go to menti.com, menti.com on your phones, and you enter the code 2702-6489, 2702-6489. So give a word that comes to mind when you think of indoor air quality. Let's see what we get. So the larger words are the words that are coming up more often. So I see clean, I see dust, mold, pollution is coming up a bit as well, health, safety. All right, very good. Thank you for that. And you can keep entering them. So yes, dust, health, mold, pollution seem to be some of the predominant words that you think of when you hear indoor air quality. Okay, so I'll go into the next presentation now. Mr. German Mike is the Deputy Director at the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards. With a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry and a Master of Science in International Environmental Sustainable Development, Mr. Mike has a robust background in scientific and environmental disciplines. In his current role, he assists in maintaining testing laboratories, managing documentation, ensuring occupational safety, and contributing to policy formulation. And I want to add here as well that Mr. Mike led the charge with the Air Quality Lab within the Bureau of Standards, which I mentioned earlier, has been accredited internationally for indoor air quality. He led the charge on that. And I want to commend him and the Bureau for being the first lab, air quality lab, to be accredited internationally in our Caribbean region and in the Western Hemisphere. I want to mention that again. So I want to invite now Mr. Mike to come and give his presentation. Please welcome Mr. Mike as he comes.
Wow, the crowd looks bigger up here. Good morning. My name is Jermaine Mike, as Dr. Natta did introduce me. I want to start out by saying that the Bureau of Standards has often been called upon to do the testing, the interpretation, the health effects, the diagnosing, and all of that and so forth, right? It seems like we are remediators, we are doctors, we're health officials, and all of that. But I want to make sure that people understand the role of the Bureau of Standards. We're here to do testing and to tell you whether the air, based on standards, is clean or not. That is our role, specifically. Now, for today, I'm going to go up a little bit, or step up a little bit, just for the sake of this, the national dialogue, and state some very basic information. And I said basic only because since we have been doing air quality, these are some of the questions and topics that has been coming to the Bureau of Standards often. So it seems like even though they may seem basic to us as the Bureau of Standards, it doesn't seem like it's basic to the public. So what is air quality? Basically, it is the physical and chemical characteristics of the air. And when we're looking at air quality as well, we also do look at the IEQ, which is the indoor environmental air quality. That has to do with the lights, the noise that is around you, right? The ergonomics, stressors that are there, whether you're sitting comfortably, and those kind of things and so forth, right? When we have a discussion on air quality, we also have to be honest. And since we are in the national dialogue, I am going to be honest in starting out the conversation. There's a term, sick building syndrome. Now, I'm going to read this slide word for word because I don't want anybody to say, Bureau of Standards say this, or Jermaine Mike said this, knowing the sensitive nature of this term, right? So basically, what the EPA have said is the situations in which building occupants experience acute health and comfort effects that appear to be linked to time spent in the building, but no specific illnesses are caused to be identified. Basically, this is saying you go into a building, you test, you maybe do mold, you maybe do gases, you maybe do particulate matter, but for some reason, you have found acceptable levels, but occupants within the building are still feeling sick, are still suffering from some kind of related illness related to air quality. It is also referred to as building-related symptoms. Right? Some of the symptoms, they are very common, which they include irritation of the eyes and nose and throat. Sometimes you have itchy skin and that kind of thing. And because they're so common is one of the reasons why they are so, the term sick building syndrome, or if anybody is suffering from it, is one of the reasons why it is so difficult to diagnose. In addition to that, because it is a sensitive thing, you don't want no doctor, or not even the Bureau of Standards, want to go and say, hey, this area is clean, possibly due to other effects and so forth, right? You just don't want to do that, so what we do is just present the facts. Some predictors of sick building syndrome include psychosocial stressors. Psychosocial stressors are things like, well, I may be getting a divorce, or not me personally, sorry. I may be getting a divorce. I may have lost my home. You know, I have financial issues, that kind of thing are psychosocial issues. Gender does play a part in it, the AC that is there and so forth, and those people that have underlying issues like asthma and so on. But why does indoor air quality matters? Of course, there are certain sections of the population that have allergies and asthma and headaches and those kind of things. And some of us do have children, and we do have grandparents and so forth, and these people are the ones that have, to use a lack of a better term, a lesser immune system, a weaker immune system, and they are more at risk. So you kind of have to have, a better air quality within the place that you work and the place that you occupy. When it comes to air quality, we typically look at the microbiological and the chemical aspects of the air. As we know, the microbiological aspects, the big term that is being used in St. Kitts is the mold spores, which we know grow in moisture-rich environments. But there's also the chemical aspect, which the Bureau of Standards started out doing the chemical aspect first in 2015 for air quality. A lot of it, as you heard Dr. Whitaker spoke about VOCs. What are VOCs? You hear this term, volatile organics. VOCs, essentially chemicals that you could essentially smell in the layman's terms. An example of a VOC, for example, you have perfumes. That is a VOC. Spray it on, so forth. Dicycline, pine sol, those kind of things contribute to the volatile organics within your space. So when you think you're cleaning and you're killing the bacteria on your floors and so forth, you're actually putting chemicals within the air, which is affecting you as well. Then the gases part, right, which is carbon dioxide, we do chlorine dioxide, nitrogen oxide, and so forth. I don't want to bore you with those terms, but they are an aspect of air quality as well. To go and speak a little bit on mold, because as I said, most people, when we first started, so forth, they didn't really want to hear too much about gases, really wanted to hear a lot about mold, health effects, and so forth. But just to give a brief overview of what some of the mold that we do test for or is likely to be within the space. They're the ones that go on the leaf surfaces, on the soil, water fungi, and those that are potentially toxigenic. Essentially, all of these mold, they start from outside, they come inside. How do they come from outside inside? Well, as Dr. Whitaker had said earlier, we live in the Caribbean with high electricity costs. You're going to open your doors, you're going to open your windows, they're going to find a way to come in. But actually, you also go outside, you walk, you bring in dust on your shoes, you bring in dust on your clothes, they have to come in, right? You have pets coming in and out, children running in and out, they will come in. It's not a room or area, unless you're doing electronics where the term clean room, there's not a room or area that will not have them. What matters is not the presence of mold, but the quantity of mold. Health effects of mold. I'm going to tread carefully again, because as I said, the Bureau of Standards does not typically speak on health. We typically leave that to the health officials. But when it comes to the health effects of mold, we have hypersensitivity. Hypersensitivity are those that suffers from allergies and so forth, right? Typically, I suffer from some allergies as well, right? It was triggered when I went to Canada. I don't know why, but now that I'm here, if I'm in a environment that is dusty and even moldy, it triggers a kind of sniffle in my nose. There's the infectious diseases. There's some toxic effects, and there's other microbial activity as well. So for example, when you go into an area and you smell this wet, dampy scent, it is the volatile organics that are given off by mold, which we call MVOCs, right? So that is the smell that you typically smell when you go into an area like that. But just because you smell that wet, dampy, moldy smell, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was coming from mold. There's also a bacteriological aspect that gives it off as well. As you can see, I have here, MVOCs can be produced by bacteria, geosmin, or have like a earthy smell, right? So don't automatically jump and say that in here smell moldy, it has to be mold. There's a bacteriological aspect as well to it. And I'm going to read this slide again because I don't want to say that the Bureau of Standards say, right? According to the California Department of Public Health, current practices for collection, analysis, and interpretation of environmental samples for mold caused by dampness and the mold in the buildings are to guide health-based actions. Basically, what this is saying, if you go into a building, mold is not enough to say that in here or the area that you're testing is unhealthy. There are other factors that you have to take into consideration before you can say in here is healthy. A more accurate approach would be, well, the dampness of the area, right? That would be one of the more accurate ways to determine whether the place is unhealthy or not. Some guidelines and standards that we defer to or use in the absence of those that are in St. Kitts and Nevis. We use ASHRAE, more notably the one from 62.1, right? That says all spaces intended for human occupancy. This is what the standard is used for. Started in 1894, so it has a long history of indoor air quality, right? And was adopted in many states within the United States, which makes it somewhat long. But there are 3 different procedures to establish appropriate amount of ventilation, right? There's a ventilation rate, which is per person and per floor. And in office spaces, there's 5 cubic feet per minute per person, or 0.06 cubic feet per minute per feet squared. You can measure that, right? You can actually measure that and see if your area is ventilated enough. And then for classrooms, school classrooms and so forth, it is 10 cubic feet per minute per person and so forth. I just throw out those numbers so that people can say, experts that are in here and so forth can know that, when you're advising clients, you can actually measure the ventilation rate and inform the building supervisors or whomever. Right, then there's the IAQ procedure, which we look for contaminant concentration, not just mold contamination, but contaminant concentration, whatever that may be. The perceived IAQ subjective evaluation. Basically, what you're saying is that you put a group of people within an area, and if 80% say that it is acceptable, then it is acceptable, right? So basically you're saying that no one person can just say the room is unacceptable, or in here full of whatever the case may be. And then there's natural ventilation procedure, which we allow the outdoor air to dilute the indoor air. Other guidelines that we also use, from the EPA, the National Ambient Air Quality, WHO, Bureau of Standards, we use a wide variety of standards, much more than this, but these are the most common ones that is being used. And that is the end of my presentation. I thank you for listening. Thank you.
Can we thank Mr. Mike once more from the St. Kitts and Nevis Bureau of Standards? I want to acknowledge the presence of our Honorable Prime Minister, Dr. Terence Drew, who is also Minister of Health. Thank you, Prime Minister, for joining us this morning. Please give the Prime Minister a round of applause. Thank you. Can we have the next mentee slide? Sorry, go back one. Or was that me? Okay. So the next question is, what do you think is the most common indoor air pollutant? What do you think is the most common indoor air pollutant? Mold, dust, chemical vapors, poor ventilation, pet dander. Indoor? We're in St. Kitts and Nevis. Listen. We don't want to get too technical. Let's think St. Kitts and Nevis. So again, that's menti.com, and then you use the code 27026489. You still seeing the question from before? Still? Still seeing the same question? Can you refresh and try that again? Maybe restart it quickly. I don't think it's in presentation mode. Okay. All right, so we'll move to the next presentation. We'll come back to that one. Our next presenter is Mr. Oren Martin. He's a highly experienced senior environmental health officer with over 27 years of service in public health. He doesn't look a day over 25, though. He holds an associate degree in environmental health and has extensive expertise in water quality management. His work has significantly contributed to safeguarding public health through the monitoring and regulation of environmental health standards. In addition to his expertise in water quality, Mr. Martin is trained in air quality testing and assessment, having completed specialized training with the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARFA. His dedication to environmental health and his wealth of practical knowledge makes him a valuable contributor to the advancement of public health initiatives across the region. Please welcome Mr. Oren Martin.
Good morning, everyone. Please allow me to adopt the protocol that was established by Dr. Natter. This morning, I'm here to be quite brief and just give an overview of what the Environmental Health Department's perspective with regards to indoor air quality. So the Environmental Health Department is governed by the Public Health Act. Anybody that knows the Public Health Act knows that it covers anything that could affect your health. You may not speak directly to it, but there are parts that will speak about air, any type of aspect to health. There are no current regulations that are in place that speak directly to indoor air quality. We do follow standards from WHO and PAHO. Now, approximately on a monthly basis, we receive approximately 2 complaints with regards to indoor air quality. They are from different places, schools, government buildings, residential, also public buildings, not that I was specifying government per se, but a lot of the complaints are respiratory conditions, sneezing, coughing, asthma-related systems, skin and eye irritation, that would be itching, rashes, offensive odor, the odor that Mr. Mike just spoke about with the breakdown of bacteria and also the volatiles, and an overall sick feeling. We follow steps in our investigation of complaints. First of all, we verify the complaint. An officer would go to the space and we use our senses. Whether we smell, whether we pick up the same symptoms, whether we see any evidence of any sort of pollutant. Confirmation. Now, this is very important for us. It does not matter what we observe with our eyes, because we are in a science-based field, testing must be done. There needs to be scientific evidence that something is there. We cannot assume, not because we've seen mold before, and we can say this is mold, but from our perspective, we are guided by science. So testing must be done to confirm. Remedial actions. For us, we go into the space, and based on what is found, and based on the results that come back, we make recommendations, whether it is for a cleaning company, whether it is to fix leaks, or whatever the issue is. Now, after these remedial actions take place, we do retesting, because it does not make sense for us to just say, okay, the cleaner came in and the area is safe. We do retesting to ensure that the area is now safe. Frequent findings when we do our inspections. Issues related to construction. Poor construction of buildings, poor ventilation and stuff like that. Water leakage. A lot of buildings in St. Kitts, I speak specifically as I work in St. Kitts, not in Nevis, they are not maintained properly. So with weathering and time, and we have natural disasters and stuff like that, we have a lot of water leakage. A lack of maintenance of air conditioning systems. Many people, most business places have air conditioners now. The question is, how often are they maintained? Storage of files. This is especially something we see at government offices, as documents and files cannot be just thrown away. They tend to store them in a corner, but this corner is the corner of a room where people inhabit. Who are mostly at risk? Mr. Mike already spoke to this, but I'll just reiterate. Children, senior citizens, asthmatics, pregnant, and immunocompromised individuals. Health implications: respiratory disease, cardiovascular disease, cognitive defects. I will not go very deeply into health implications, as I am not a medical doctor. So I would prefer that I stay in my field. Ongoing efforts, training, excuse me. We are presently conducting a training in indoor air quality as we speak. There are members on the ground that are actively training members of the health department in how to physically conduct tests with regards to air quality. Last week, was it Mr. Mills? We had 2 days of online training with the same individual that is currently here, where he gave us the theoretical aspects of it. We are now in the midst, between today and tomorrow, we'll be doing actual physical tests. I myself will be present tomorrow to see the actual testing. We continue to inspect buildings. Our mandate is not just to check complaints. We are to go out and do investigations and inspections to ensure that things are the way they should be, not just waiting for someone to make a complaint. We also do air quality assessments with the Bureau of Standards. Reason being, as Mr. Mike says, because people know the Bureau are the one that runs the tests, they get the calls. So in conjunction, we work closely together. And that's about it. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. Please thank Mr. Martin once again. So can we try that quickly, the Mentimeter? No? Okay. So we'll go to our next presenter. Mr. Ellis Hazel holds a Master of Science degree in Urban Planning and Development from the University of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and an undergraduate degree in Geography from the University of the West Indies, Mona Campus, Jamaica. He served as Director of Physical Planning and Environment in the Ministry of Sustainable Development from 2005 to 2007, Chief Physical Planner from 2001 to 2005, and Executive Secretary of the Development Control and Planning Board from 2002 to 2007. He's the current Chairman of the Development Control and Planning Board. Mr. Hazel is presently employed as Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of the Whitegate Development Corporation, where he is responsible for designing the work plan and managing the strategic direction of the organization. As a certified chartered director, his experience as a regulator and practitioner has allowed him to provide support to the public and the private sectors, particularly in the field of environmental assessments. He has served as team leader for various environmental impact assessments for large and medium-sized developments locally and regionally. He is a staunch advocate for environmental sustainability and is fully supportive of the country's Sustainable Island State agenda. Please welcome Mr. Ellis Hazel.
Good morning, all. Please allow me to adopt the protocol previously established, except to recognize the members of cabinet who are in attendance. My presentation would focus on the building code as it relates to air quality and indoor and safety. I think we're waiting for the, okay. So I'll be looking at the building codes as it relates to air quality and safety. By way of presentation outline, I'm going to make my way down from the purpose of the building code down to the building regulations and as they relate to the Sustainable Island State agenda. So the purpose of the building code, it provides for the construction of new buildings, structures, alteration, reconstruction, demolition, etc. I want to make the point that the Development Control and Planning Act provides the enabling or legislative framework for the application of the building code. The building code provides for public health and safety, especially as it relates to adequate light and ventilation, the supply of suitable water, and adequate arrangements for sanitary storage of waste and refuse. The typical air quality issues that, and I want to say that I'm not a public health expert, but as a member of the environmental community, these are the typical air quality issues that we come across at the planning board. Chemical release from building materials is one that is often not considered, but you would find, especially hardwoods that are used in construction, they tend to have a long-lasting odor within the building envelope. Carbon monoxide is also an issue, mostly from external sources, and outdoor air pollutants. I think Dr. Whitaker, in his presentation, emphasized that oftentimes the indoor air quality is influenced by outdoor or external factors. The building code provides the framework for the submission of building applications. And I particularly included this slide because a lot of the indoor air quality issues can be addressed at a very early stage, in particular, the design of buildings. And I think my colleague Dexter is going to speak to some of that. The site plan is of critical importance, the way you lay out a subdivision and so on. The code provides guidelines for building lots. Building lots are the lots within a particular subdivision, whether it's in the urban area or the rural area. And the lot sizes has a lot to do with the type of buildings in terms of height that you would put on a particular lot, or also in terms of the orientation of the buildings as it relates to airspace in front, back of the buildings and various site boundaries. The height of buildings is of critical importance to indoor air quality. If you can envisage a single-story building being less than 10 feet from a three-story building, and that three-story building is in the path of the prevailing winds, it simply means that the person who is in the single-story building will be limited in terms of airflow, and in terms of light. So the building code tries to address these sort of variations within the subdivision envelope. It also speaks to the height of rooms. So we're already feeling baked inside in this meeting room. Can you imagine if the roof was lower? All right, so the building code addresses issues like those. I wouldn't go into much detail because it's very technical. The building code also provides for the classification of buildings, and it doesn't just address residential buildings. Class A buildings or Group A buildings would be assembly buildings like these. And I have if you can see, I have the various type of buildings under each category. Under each category of buildings, there are also occupancy content. So if you were to do a rough calculation, let's say if you were to pack 500 persons in this room, the air quality would significantly deteriorate. And you can apply it to any sort of building. If you go into a nightclub and the capacity is 100 and you have 300 persons in there and 3 of them smoking weed, you're going to end up in some serious air quality issues. It also speaks to the size of buildings, the dimensions, and I am happy to report that we now have an Institute of Architects, is that the correct, that is now working closely with the Development Control and Planning Board in terms of reviewing what these dimensions are for the various classifications of rooms and so on. I was watching Judge Judy a few days ago, and there was a case where a tenant in an second floor unit was suing the landlord because the landlord had a club on the ground floor, and there are restrictions in terms of smoking and occupancy and what have you. And basically the gist of it is that the tenant took the landlord to court because fumes from the club below the unit were infiltrating the unit. And in a later slide, you're going to see where the connection is made in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals and where we want to get in terms of improving air quality in St. Kitts and Nevis. Lighting and ventilation, I will just emphasize that the code speaks to window openings. It doesn't really address what type of windows you use, whether it's sash or awning windows, but the type of windows you choose as a client or as a designer has a lot to do with the indoor air quality with regards to the air columns and air circulation, ventilation, etc. Now, water installation, you might wonder, what the hell water installation has to do with air quality? Sometimes in our homes, there is a foul smell. And, we wonder if your children have flushed the toilet or if they have not flushed the toilet. And you go and you look in the toilet. You have not used it, but you see the water quality is a bit off. And that is because usually you have a backflow within your drainage system, whether it's the wastewater or whether it's actual potable water. And so it's important to ensure always that you have adequate water pressure, or that when you are installing your drainage system for your sewage, that there's a flow rather than a backflow. And so it is important that designers take this into consideration. I mentioned sewage and waste disposal. A few weeks ago, and I'm not going to call the institution's name, but that particular institution has perhaps over 100 employees in a single building, maybe a 3-story building, I think it is. And the waste, the solid waste, is stored in a room that is not air-conditioned. That room is above the basement level. And so everybody who is working in the basement are suffering from air quality issues because of the exchange of fumes from that waste holding facility down into the basement. Every effort should be made to prevent this type of situation. Waste in these buildings should be removed daily and not be stored overnight, especially if it is not air-conditioned. And so the building code speaks to how do you address waste, whether it's solid waste or it's human waste. Air conditioning, I see we have cool tech in the building. The main problem that we have with air conditioning is the drainage of the units and condensation. And so it is recommended, the building code recommends that air conditioning units are installed by qualified people. And if those persons are qualified, at least follow the manufacturer's instructions. This is a common one that we are seeing now, issues to do with stormwater and roof drainage. And it leads to leaking, whether the roofs are concrete or whether they are from timber frame and galvalume covering. The issue, in my opinion, is one of design and execution. A lot of homes now are designed with all kind of fancy roof and stuff like that. It's one of application as well. I actually drove in the fire station Yard Rommel a few weeks ago, and that blue building that is there is not 1 square inch of it that is not cracked in terms of the external rendering. Once you have cracks in the external walls, they are going to leak. The water is going to enter the masonry blocks if they are not filled with concrete, and you're going to have a serious moisture issue that you cannot see, which potentially can lead to mold or the development of fungi. So we have to pay, as designers, we have to pay a lot of attention to the quality of workmanship and also the quality of materials that we are using for roofing. Concrete, a lot of us think that concrete is impervious. It is not. If you do not have the right mixture of concrete, your roof is going to leak. So enforcement and compliance. In terms of the code provides for building inspectors to go out and do their work. And I really would want to ask that the general public work with the building inspectors rather than threaten them. It is an offense to threaten a building inspector. We encourage volunteerism in terms of compliance rather than the strict application of the law. The building code is designed to be prescriptive and not restrictive. And compliance really is a cocktail of regulations supported, of course, by the government, transparency, because sometimes people believe that one rule apply to Mr. X and another rule apply to Mr. Y. So we have to be transparent in the process. And standards. We as a federation, we have to employ standards. Standards are hard to come by because standards depend on the participation of people, the general public stakeholders. In terms of the procedure, if there is non-compliance, the Department of Physical Planning, as secretariat to the planning board, they issue a compliance notice. If you don't comply, they issue a stop order. You have the opportunity to appeal, and we hope that we don't end up into judicial proceedings. But we are having some serious challenges with compliance. There seems to be an appetite for lawlessness within the building sector, and we urge that people see the building code not as a big no, but as an instrument that can help you to better the end product. A house is perhaps the most important investment some of us will ever make in our lives. And so why not ensure that it is done properly? In terms of the Sustainable Island State agenda, the government has boldly declared that this is the direction in which we are going. And the 7 pillars that they have emphasized are food security, green energy transition, economic diversification, et cetera, et cetera. As it relates to the topic that we're discussing here, green energy transition is one of those things that are going to be very, very instrumental in terms of improving air quality. Dr. Whitaker mentioned climate change. As we begin to experience the dire effects of climate change, a lot of us are going to migrate to air conditioning and so on. Skeleton bill is hurting us. Green energy is the way to go. There's an opportunity also for the development of sustainable industries and economic diversification. We have a presenter who has come up with creative ways of addressing some indoor air quality issues, and so there's an opportunity for persons to gain some sort of livelihood in addressing internal air quality issues. Now, in terms of how we can promote sustainable construction, design is very important. And I mentioned before, we now have an Institute of Architects working closely with the Development Control and Planning Board in terms of helping persons to design better buildings, not just residential buildings, commercial buildings, etc. I went into a hardware the other day, and I went in there to buy maybe 5 items, and I left because even though the air condition was on, there was no insulation in the roof, and so it was unbearable. That building had insulation, the air conditioning would have been functioning better, and I might have purchased 10 items. Instead, I left with 0. Energy efficiency, I mentioned that. Waste reduction, we have to begin to use a lot of recycled construction materials, safe recycled construction materials. Our construction costs in St. Kitts, in my estimation, is way too high. And a lot of persons who are intended to build a house, I will tell you flat, rent. Because it's cheaper to rent than to spend a lot of money to build a house. A house, as a colleague of mine said, is a negative asset. But if you can reduce the cost of the house, then it can work out in your favor. Water conservation and CAPSEC, I think we need a national dialogue on water as well. So I would plug for the government to program that sooner than later. There are challenges. The challenges I just mentioned include costs, and I know my time has expired, but the dialogue is so important that I'm going to break the rule and go on a bit longer. But other than costs, there are opportunities. And the opportunities, again, they can work in our favor. For contractors, if you do good work, you get more work because then your reputation is enhanced. But from the government side, I want to make the point that there are regulatory hurdles. Every time, for example, a new building construction technique is introduced, there's a process, and very often the process takes too long. And so we need to have a conversation on how can we make that process more efficient for the benefit of stakeholders. Now, in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, I wouldn't go through all of them, but the conversation on indoor air quality has a lot to do with the Sustainable Development Goal 3, which is good health and well-being. You can research them. They are on all kind of platforms on the internet. Clean water and sanitation is of critical importance to indoor air quality. Affordable and green energy. And number 8 in particular, looking at decent work and decent work conditions. I mentioned to you the hard way that I went in and I had to leave because of the poor indoor air quality and so on. But as stakeholders and as customers, we have to be responsible in our consumption habits. In terms of SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, again, the regulatory environment has to improve. The relationship between property owners and tenants has to be improved. We are becoming a more litigious state. People take you to court for anything now. But importantly is a partnership in achieving this. The multipurpose lab, the Ministry of Health, the Planning Board, Fire Department, etc., we cannot do it alone. So there has to be a collaboration, a partnership, and I believe this is a good start. This symposium is a good start. And I'll take my leave. Thank you.
Yes, let us thank Mr. Hazel once more for his presentation. Thank you so much. Technicians, are we good with the Menti or no? Yes? No? That's presentation mode? No? Is it? I see some votes there. It's available now? Okay. I'm not seeing it in presentation mode, but okay. So if you can answer that question quickly, what do you think is the most common indoor air pollutant? It's not. Yeah. That's true. Okay, so from what I'm seeing, I see the votes are coming in 53% on my device. 53% saying dust is the most common. 32% saying poor ventilation. Good. And mold 5%. Interesting, since mold is a big buzzword, I thought maybe persons would say mold, but clearly the presentations are making an impact, which is good, and educating us on the fact that there's more than mold to indoor air quality. Very good. Our next presenter is Mr. Dexter Fasal. Dexter is an architect with nearly 2 decades of experience in the field. He earned his bachelor's degree in architecture from the University of Camagüey, Cuba, and holds a specialist diploma in urban environmental management from the National University of Central Peru. His thesis, Sustainable Design Through the Use of BIM Software to Determine the Energy Efficiency of Buildings, reflects his commitment to innovative and eco-friendly architectural practices. Dexter is the owner and principal architect of R Architects Incorporated. He's a registered architect and holds full membership in the St. Lucia Institute of Architects. Currently, he serves as the president of the St. Kitts and Nevis Institute of Architects, SKNIA. Please welcome Mr. Dexter Fasal as he comes.
A little warm in here. Good morning to all. I am pleased to present you on behalf of the St. Kitts Nevis Institute of Architects, SKNIA. This morning we're going to look at the role that the architect plays in shaping healthier indoor environments. By way of content, we are going to look at the importance of indoor air quality in building design strategies that focus on ventilation, materials, and humidity control. We also look at some of the common issues, particularly mold prevention, and practical solutions for both new and existing buildings. We're also going to look at the connection between architecture and climate resilience, emphasizing the role of the architect in supporting the sustainable island state agenda. We're also going to look at the role of the architect as key players in promoting IAQ. Finally, we're going to look at 3 case studies, 3 distinct typologies in residential, commercial, and touristic. So, what is the significance of indoor air quality? As we have heard, basically, 90% of the time we spend basically is spent indoors. 90% of our time is spent indoors. And of course, now we know it's a global statistic and not necessarily that of our region. Simply put, the quality of air that we breathe is critical to our overall well-being. Hence, it is critically important that indoor air quality is directly impacted by design approaches such as building orientation, floor layout, materiality, and of course, adequate ventilation. Design strategies. We can improve the quality of our indoor air by fostering proper ventilation, inviting fresh air and allowing it to circulate efficiently, naturally, or through the use of mechanical assisted systems. Equally important is the selection of materials. For example, the selection of paints, primers, adhesives that are all low, volatile organic compounds, commonly known as VOCs. Additionally, controlling humidity levels is critical in places such as St. Kitts and Nevis, where high humidity can lead to mold growth. Taking a look at common issues. As mentioned previously, one of the most common indoor problems we are faced with is mold, typically, which is typical in our tropical climate. We can reduce the occurrence by ensuring proper ventilation in high humidity areas such as bathrooms and kitchens. For existing buildings, it is important to consider retrofitting strategies such as installing better ventilation systems, adding air purifiers, dehumidifiers, all in an attempt to improve air quality. These steps are indeed significant in mitigating indoor issues, as if not, they can become more critical. Architecture and climate resilience. It is important that we consider the issue of indoor air quality within the broader context of climate change. And as part of the Sustainable Island State agenda, architects are in a unique position to basically design buildings that are resilient to climate impacts, such as extreme heat, increased humidity, while promoting acceptable levels of thermal comfort to its occupants. It is said that when we align people and environment, we promote powerful outcomes. The role of architects in indoor air quality. Architects don't only design spaces, but by extension, we design environments where people live, work, and of course, enjoy. As such, well-designed interior spaces may contribute to a nation's productivity and efficiency, hence the potential for greater return on investment across all sectors. So, taking a look at the current landscape today, there are a few considerations that we can apply basically to assist us in the building of capacity, stimulating more sustainable design practices within our society. And in first place, we could look at the possibility of the government being the lead, being the champions of the movement, and encouraging design solutions specifically for its facilities that align with LEED and other gold standard certifications. Secondly, we look at the codes. We are fortunate that we do have what is considered to be the CRIBEC, is the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code that we should encourage practitioners to form part of our arsenals when we design new homes and by extension buildings. We should encourage and facilitate opportunities for training in sustainability-focused careers. And lastly, of course, public sensitization. There's a need for us to increase the amount of contact we have with the public and how we discuss such sensitive issues. I now invite you to benefit from a few case studies that we've put together. Just bear with us. Any luck, guys? I do apologize for the wait, but technology sometimes.
extension, thermal comfort of its occupants. The layout and orientation of the residence prioritizes the use of natural cross-ventilation from the prevailing northeast breezes throughout the spaces. Here we can observe several opportunities for the circulation of fresh, cool air.
Yeah, thank you very much. From the top.
This local residential example incorporated a few design strategies that promote an acceptable IAQ and, by extension, thermal comfort of its occupants. Layout and orientation of the residence prioritizes the use of natural cross-ventilation from the prevailing northeast breezes throughout the spaces. Here we can observe several opportunities for the circulation of fresh, cool air throughout the layout. The volume of stale air is therefore minimized and reduces the reliance on mechanically assisted systems. Hot, warm air is expelled via the stack effect from an internal breathing tube, which houses plants in keeping with biophilic design principles. The incorporation of high-level vents further encourages warm air, specifically where rooms are unable to satisfy horizontal cross-ventilation requirements. Penetration of sun exposure to wet humid zones, such as kitchens, laundries, and bathrooms, is essential to combat the proliferation of other undesirables. The layout allows for several opportunities for thermal as the sun journeys across to these areas. The use of economical materials such as glass blocks for the construction of skylights are just a few examples within the designer's toolkit. Savannah East is a landmark certified sustainable design in Trinidad and Tobago. Located in the heart of Savannah East sets a new standard for eco-friendly construction and operation in the Caribbean. One of the most critical aspects of Savannah East design is its focus on maintaining high indoor air quality, or IAQ. Achieving optimal IAQ was a top priority throughout both the design and construction phases. During construction, a rigorous IAQ management plan was implemented. This included constant monitoring and random inspections to ensure that air quality was never compromised. Inspection stickers were used to maintain a high level of awareness among the construction teams, helping them stay informed about IAQ requirements. To ensure long-term air quality, Savannah East utilizes state-of-the-art ventilation systems designed to supply clean, filtered air throughout the building. These systems help reduce pollution and maintain a healthy indoor environment for occupants. Strategically placed windows allow for abundant daylighting. The building's eco-friendly materials, along with its energy-efficient systems, ensure minimal emissions of harmful pollutants like volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, which can negatively affect indoor air quality. With these innovative features, Savannah East earned a LEED Silver certification under the Corps and Shell rating system in 2017, paving the way for a healthier, more sustainable future for office buildings in the region. Savannah East is more than just a building. It's a symbol of progress toward a healthier, greener future. Through its advanced indoor air quality systems, it offers a workspace that enhances the well-being of its occupants while protecting the environment. The Jade Mountain Resort is an architectural masterpiece nestled in the heart of St. Lucia. This award-winning resort is renowned for its sustainable design and integration with the natural environment, earning it LEED Gold certification in 2016. One of the most striking features of Jade Mountain is its open-air design, which plays a critical role in maintaining exceptional indoor air quality. Each guest sanctuary has a unique open fourth wall, allowing natural ventilation from the lush rainforest and refreshing ocean breezes to flow freely through the space. This natural airflow not only keeps the spaces cool, but also eliminates the need for mechanical air conditioning, reducing energy consumption and enhancing the resort's eco-friendly approach. The continuous circulation of fresh air ensures that guests enjoy a healthier, cleaner environment. The open design and grand spaces of each sanctuary blend seamlessly with the surrounding nature. Guests experience unparalleled indoor-outdoor living, with infinity pools and sweeping views that enhance the overall sense of well-being. Because it's located high in the mountains, Jade Mountain benefits from its distance from urban pollution, providing clean, unspoiled air. This, combined with the resort's thoughtful design, ensures that air quality is consistently high throughout the property. The focus on health and well-being extends beyond architecture. Guests also have access to Jade Mountain's sister property, Anse Chastanet, where they can enjoy wellness treatments and yoga sessions, all designed to promote relaxation and rejuvenation. Jade Mountain is more than just a luxury resort. It's a sanctuary designed in harmony with nature, where sustainable practices and natural indoor air quality combine to create an unforgettable, health-conscious experience.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fassal. Please give Mr. Fassal another round of applause. Our final presenter, before we take your questions and comments and then take a short break, is Mr. Nathalian David Debison. I know him as David. He holds a Bachelor of Science in International Management, graduating with first-class honors from the University of the West Indies. After 15 years working with an international banking institution, the last 5 years as a corporate real estate projects officer, he founded Advanced Building Maintenance Systems, ABMS, in 2017. ABMS delivers maintenance solutions to small, medium, and large enterprises. The company specializes in residential and commercial cleaning with a focus on mold remediation using advanced technologies. Nathalian is also a member of the International Facilities Management Association, IFMA. Please welcome Mr. Debison as he comes.
Good morning to everyone. The final presentation for this morning. Before we have the question and answer segment, I look forward to doing more interactive presentations, so I guess it's fitting that I should end the presentation just before we enter the question and answer segment. I see a few of my customers there that I'm very familiar with, that I have done services for at one point or the other. So some of the information I'll be sharing is not unfamiliar to them, and to the rest of us, the information hopefully will be helpful. So my presentation today will be on the role of proper cleaning and maintenance as we have the symposium on indoor air quality. So, brief outline of what I'll be discussing today: the benefits of regular cleaning, the importance of professional cleaning. I want to have a short discussion about mold. Most of the presenters who came before me touched on mold, so I will also touch on mold and share some additional information. And more importantly, I will speak on cleaning mold, how we go about cleaning mold. So when we speak about the benefits of regular cleaning, there are numerous benefits. One of them is it prevents dust, dirt, and allergen buildup. It contributes to the overall well-being of individuals, and it promotes productivity in the workplace. Most persons are not aware of how you connect cleaning to productivity in the workplace. We grew up in a society where we worked in offices that had carpets, and there were certain individuals who every time they come to work, they sneeze in the coffin, and you just write it off as that person is sickly, they need to stay home, they need to eat better. But oftentimes the problem is generated from something in the office that's not being done properly. For example, as I said, carpet cleaning. Most of us are not aware, and some business places might be upset that I'm saying this. Most carpets are designed to last for no longer than 10 years. How many of you have carpets in your office that are there for longer than 10 years? That might be a cause of poor indoor air quality. And even if you do have commercial carpets are designed, they're expected to be cleaned at least once every 6 months. When last you had a proper deep carpet cleaning. Those are the little things that we do not recognize and we do not see. So that the benefit of having proper cleaning is that you increase productivity at your workplace. It also brings a sense of well-being. Coming to work and meeting a dirty office will just cool your speed. You won't have the energy to do the things that you need to do because the office is untidy. You come into the office, the garbage from yesterday is still in the kitchen, so it smells. You don't want to go into the kitchen. The bathroom is not kept properly. These little things can impact your productivity. Additionally, proper maintenance and cleaning prevents damage and improves the lifespan of your assets. If you have a proper maintenance schedule in place for your ACs, we spoke about AC units. You have a proper maintenance schedule for your AC units, an AC unit would last you 5, 6, 7 years down the line if it is cleaned regularly, it is serviced regularly. But if you install the AC unit and you wait until 3 years later when it breaks down, by that time, you need to just get a replacement. You cannot fix it anymore because it is gone. So the importance of regular maintenance, regular cleaning cannot be understated. Let's also look now at the importance of professional cleaning, because for your office, you may have an attendant who is able to do the basic stuff. The attendant comes in at the afternoon, cleans the bathroom, cleans the kitchen, throws out the garbage, sweeps and mops the floor. But that oftentimes is not enough when you're talking about your equipment, your investment into your office building, into your own homes. It is not enough. Every once in a while, you need professional cleaning. Some of the things that is encompassed in professional cleaning is carpet cleaning. Carpet cleaning is not running the vacuum over the carpet. It means shampooing the carpet. In some cases, using steam, using shampoo, and then drying the carpet properly so it don't create an environment for mold to come. You have mold remediation, mattress cleaning. In the old days, our mothers used to put out the mattress, our fathers put out the mattress to get sun when they feel like it starts to smell funky. But in the climate we live in, it is not enough to just put your mattress out to sun. You have to deep clean your mattress, because that might be some of the issues you're experiencing when you have poor indoor air quality. Poor washing, and professional cleaners use proper personal protective equipment. Because it is not expected that you, when you go to clean your kitchen, that you're going to put on overalls. You may put on gloves, and some of us don't even do that. But you may put on gloves, but when you engage a professional to do the work, the professional is going to come prepared with the expectation that, you know, when I clean the ceiling, dust might start to raise in the place. I have proper mask, and I am capable and in a position to do the proper cleaning. The importance of proper cleaning when it comes to indoor air quality, as I said, cannot be understated. Let's speak about mold. We had Mr. Mike from the Bureau of Standards who gave us an overview of mold. We had other presenters, Dr. Whitaker included, who spoke about the different types of mold. While I will leave that technical aspect to those persons, I will still want to share some information about mold that is very common and easy to get a hold of. And I'll follow Mr. Mike, who said that he will read straight off the slide, just so they don't say David said. It says, according to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, under ideal conditions, which is optimal temperature and levels of humidity, it takes just 24 to 48 hours for mold to germinate and grow. Typically, spores begin to colonize in 3 to 12 days, and mold can grow on any porous surface given that there is dust and moisture. So having a team, a professional team like Advanced Building Maintenance coming into your space and cleaning it right now does not guarantee that in a month's time you will not have mold if you do not carry out regular cleaning and maintenance at your space. It only takes 24 hours for mold to germinate and grow. And as Mr. Mike said, mold is all over. There is no space that is devoid of mold. None. Excess moisture is generally the cause of indoor mold. Talk about leaky pipes. We talk about leaky roofs. We talk about those cracks in the walls that outside so that when rain beats on the wall outside, the water gets in. And like Mr. Ellis said, even if you have a concrete roof and water gets on there, if the water stays on there, it will find a way to get in the house. Regardless of how secure or how sealed you think the house is, because water will always find its way in. That is a guarantee. The only way to confirm the type of mold you have and the amount of mold you have is through environmental testing. We have a lot of persons who claim to be experts on mold just because they could smell it or it gives them a reaction. So they'll walk in a building and say, oh, you have a mold problem. You may have mold. You have mold in your building. That I can guarantee you. Everybody has mold in their building. You have mold in your house. You have mold in your bedroom, your kitchen. You're guaranteed to have mold there. But in terms of the type of mold or the concentration of the mold, only laboratory testing can determine that. But you can avoid mold reaching to the levels or any type of contaminant reaching to the level where it starts to affect your health, affect the quality of your sleep by just doing the simple things, which are continuing doing regular cleaning. I want to share with you some of the things you could use for regular cleaning of mold. Some household things that we use, very common. Clorox. Clorox is a very cost-effective and readily available tool for mold cleaning. But when I tell you use Clorox to clean your house, I'm not telling you pour a gallon of Clorox in a mop bucket and mop the whole floor. It has a mix to it. You have to use the right mix. It says 5 tablespoons or 1/3 of a cup of bleach to 1 gallon of water. And that is very effective. You have to be able to use those. You can use that. It's Clorox in itself, though, it's an abrasive solution. So if you use too much Clorox, you'll start to see the colors fade on top of your material. But there are other non-abrasive tools that you can use. You have Fabuloso, Discipline, Pine Sol, but those, when you use them, you have to be aware of the VOC content because they will have a strong scent, and if you don't mix them right, the scent will be too strong and it makes you upset. So that will in turn affect your air quality at your home. There are others that you can use though that are less abrasive and they don't have that VOC content. Vinegar is a very good natural substitute for Clorox. You could use vinegar, but again, it's using the right mix to be effective. Now we know what we can use to clean, we also have to know where to clean. We could identify this space here. Everyone has this space. The top of your cupboards. When you're doing your cleaning, you clean the cupboards, you'll open the cupboards, you'll clean the stuff inside the cupboards, but you're not going to go on top of the cupboard and clean. That is an area that you have a lot of dust hanging out in. And this is not only for your residential home, it's for your office too. Because if you have cleaners who come in to work for 1 hour who feel that they're doing too much, there is a very high likelihood that they will not get on top of the cupboards in the office. Areas to clean. You could identify this here. This is a stain on your carpet. Somebody had a spillage, water fell down. The water cooler fell down, water thing on your cup fell down. The cleaner come and mop it up, dry it up, but you see the mark, the stain is still there. The cleaner is not expected to go and clean that. You may need to then engage a professional cleaning company to come and shampoo that carpet. Because while the top of the carpet might look somewhat clean, some people would find that acceptable. What's going on underneath there during the time that you're waiting? So those are some of the common areas. Oh, and this in your roof. I have seen these roofs in St. Kitts. I have seen rules look like that in St. Kitts. And those are rules that water gets into. But you have a ceiling, so from the underneath, from inside the room, you don't see what's going on there. But this can negatively impact the air quality inside of your home. And this is one of the reasons that you'll have to engage a professional cleaning company, because it's not expected for you to go up in your ceiling and see this. And even if you do go up in your ceiling and you see it, you may not have the capacity to deal with it. Finally, one of the most common areas, everybody can recognize where this is. A most common area where you have mold festering and growing, right under your kitchen sink. Under your kitchen sink, under your bathroom sink, for those persons who have a cupboard under the sink. A simple thing like pushing a basket underneath there would cause that pipe to leak, that waste pipe to leak. Sometimes it's the supply line that leaks. Or when you're using the kitchen, water gets onto the countertop and seeps under the sink. Then you have a problem. Every once in a while you pull it out and you clean it, but you have mold festering underneath there. So it's important that you just, not that you know what to use, but you have to know where to use them, where to look for. So you'll have a house that looks very clean and persons are wondering, why am I feeling sick? Why is there a problem here? Why my child is always going to the hospital on the machine, like they have asthma? The house is clean, the floor is mopped, but the areas that you need to be paying attention to, you just might not know what they are. So the importance in cleaning and maintenance of your building, your AC units, your windows, because sometimes you have water coming into the person's house through the windows. The contractor installed the windows, but there was improper installation. So when rain falls, you have water going into the windows. And 2 days after rainfall, you see water coming through a crack on the wall because the water is inside the wall waiting. So it's important that you know what to clean and how to clean. And it's also very important that you put in place maintenance systems that will allow you to have that proper air quality in your residence and in your office. And you need to hold yourself accountable and the persons that you work for, the offices that you work for, make sure you ask the hard questions. Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing to ensure that we have proper air quality in our office? Thank you. That's it.
Yes, let's thank Mr. David Debusson once more for his insights. As we go into this segment that's called Let's Dialogue, I'm going to ask if we can have the staff prepare the platform just by bringing the chairs for the presenters to be able to answer your questions. There are refreshments outside. You can grab something to eat or drink and come right back in for the dialogue session right now. And we'll also do a quick Menti or two. Yes, can we do that now? Great. So this particular one is rank the following factors by their importance in maintaining indoor air quality. Let's see your responses to that. So we're ranking the following factors by their importance in maintaining indoor air quality. We have ventilation, humidity control, regular maintenance, air filtration, minimizing or eliminating pollution sources. So let's see your votes for those. next one quickly, and then we jump into the dialogue. Can I move it? So we're going to rank these environments in terms of how clean you think their indoor air is. Homes, schools, hospitals, and offices. How clean do you think their air is? So we're going to rank those. You think their indoor air is? Homes, offices, hospitals, and schools. Right now, homes have the highest ranking. So that means we think homes have the poorest air quality, and most of the research actually shows that that is correct. So our homes are critically important. Okay, so we have a running break going, and we'll invite folks to come back in shortly. Also, if you did not receive a colored piece of paper when you came in this morning, please see the registration desk, and they will give you a colored piece of paper. That's going to be important for us in our next segment. So we have microphones in the aisles, and we would welcome your questions, comments, and feedback on the presentations. The presenters are here. We also have some medical professionals in the room. So if we get any technical medical questions, we'll be sure to direct those to the medical professionals if they don't mind, just in case. So just a few more minutes, I'll let you have to answer the question that's on the screen. Maybe we can go to the next one, since homes has been shown. Can we just do one more, and then we'll go into the question and answer. So after the discussion so far today, how concerned are you about indoor air quality? Let's have some votes on that. So far in our discussions, presentations, how concerned are you about indoor air quality in general? one more minute and on the voting. So I see persons, 61% say they're extremely concerned about indoor air quality. Okay, so that concern will prompt some action, I hope. That's very good. So at this time, let's jump into the dialogue. We have all of our presenters are on stage. There are 2 standing mics in the hall. So please approach the mic with your question and direct your question to any of the panelists at this time. Don't be shy. Good. Is the mic too high?
Yeah, I'm a short person. I'll get it done. Good day. Mr. Mike or anyone else who can answer. What is the threshold when each substance, when you're doing air quality test, and each substance falls within an acceptable level, at what threshold or potential synergistic effects would we look at the combination of the various air pollutants and do further investigations or make recommendations?
Question is kind of broad, boy.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the thresholds, which means that if you're looking at a particular element, you want another threshold for that. It's difficult for me to remember some of them. So for like carbon dioxide is 1,000 ppm, right? That's what we use for that particular standard. For mold, we use 500 spore count per cubic meter. For particulate matter, 2.5, I think we use like 16 micrograms.
Yeah, don't worry about the actual numbers. My curiosity is more about, let's say we do these tests, and what we're testing for, each substance falls within the acceptable limits. However, they may be just below the acceptable limits or something like that. At what point, because sometimes chemical agents and microbial agents, whatever, can act together and have additive effects or synergistic effects where their single effects, when combined, outnumbers or escalates a situation beyond what we would recognize. Are there any synergistic testing or understanding of the combined effects of various substances, even when they fall within our norms?
Once they fall within the acceptable limit, there's nothing, it's done. Because what justification would we use?
That they can work together and be more harmful. That's okay. I was just checking. The other one, Mr. Hazel, I recognize that when we're talking about some of the building codes and some of the requirements, there was no particular emphasis on heat and thermal management, but I did see that the architects do talk about that, so I recognize that there will be some recommendations made in that area. There are some issues with implementing certain things. For example, it's very difficult, as we talk about drainage, to find things like P-trap toilets in St. Kitts and Nevis. And not all drains have that type of structure to reduce backflow. So sometimes the things you want that could make it easier are just not available here. A few years ago, I wanted some reflective roof paint because a section of my parents' home has a flat roof. It used to be sold here. I'm based in Nevis, and when I asked around Nevis, I was told we used to have it, but it's no longer available. So sometimes the actual resources needed to implement these things are not readily available to citizens here. But as it was brought up with maintenance, I do think particularly government, as was mentioned, needs to take the lead because there are the concerns as it affects indoor air quality. But when buildings are not well maintained, it also puts, if something were to happen, rescuers and other persons at higher risk. So we need to think beyond just those things also. So I'm happy it's being brought up. And simple things like when it comes to the air conditioning unit, I see it a lot, even with government buildings. Air conditioning units are placed on the east or west facing walls, and then they get so much heat in the day that that reduces their efficiency. So that should be something we consider. And just as we look at recommendations, telling people, locate this, just cover it or put it in an area where there might be short shrubbery or something like that. Thank you for addressing and some of the new building codes. The new building codes are addressing some of the other current concerns I do have, like water flow around the structure, how we accelerate air if there's one building here versus another, and pitch and those things. And I saw a mention of the stack effect. We can also probably look at Bernoulli, which works well with the stack effect, for a few other things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Corinne Simmons. When I saw this symposium was going to come about, I was very excited, and I decided I was not going to miss it for the world. My first question is to Jermaine Mike. Jermaine is laughing because Jermaine knows me very well. When you started your discussion, one of your statements stuck with me, and you said, we are going to be honest. You spoke about sick building syndrome. And I'm so happy you mentioned that, because so many of us, including myself, had suffered tremendously. Because you spoke of it, I think that you are now recognizing it and actually calling it for what it is. I thank you for doing that. You all came, one of the things that when you all advertised mold was the issue, was the big word. That is what drew me to it. But even though you all spoke about mold, you all just mentioned it very briefly. Hardly anybody touched on it. Dr. Whitaker, and I'm sorry that he left so early because I wanted to question him. As a matter of fact, he seems to be sharing some of the same things that I'm going through. Right? He spoke about aspergillus, which is one of the main dominant mold in St. Kitts that is causing havoc right now to a lot of people, including myself. I'm just going to say this. My last diagnosis, November 2023, was fibrotic lung disease, which there is no cure. I was told that the mold is living or was living in my lungs. My thing, I would have had a medical doctor up there. When you're having something like this, there should be a medical doctor. I have suffered tremendously, but I'm not here for that. Mr. Deposois, David, you knows me very well. We are friends for many years. In your presentation, your last statement was, we should be asking our employers questions. Are we doing enough for air quality? Are we, pulling through things? Sadly, unfortunately, when we start asking questions, we are deemed as troublemakers. We are saying, oh, we don't want to work. Oh, this, oh, that. Wait there, but you're dying. Because if you let it go on for so long, 6 years I was in a building, 6 years, inhaling that, getting sick, nobody knew what was happening to me. I already started writing my will and putting things in place because I work out, that's it for me. Thank God I took 8 weeks vacation. Came out of the building. Miraculously, my health started improving. Went back into the building. Get sick in a matter of 3 days. And that's when they realized mold was my issue. Y'all came and test the building. Got the mold name from you all. Went and test. And for that mold, the accepted levels in your body is 2 and below. My test came back 34.4. When we ask questions, you're doing enough? Look that spot there. Look what's going on here. The best bet is to get rid of you. And when they get rid of you, they put you in an environment worse than before because you are being punished. You are being victimized. I am glad for this symposium. But at the same time, more should be done. A lot more. Anything you could think about with mold I got. Pneumonia, asthma, blood clot, rheumatoid arthritis, skin rash, allergy scan done. For the last 2 weeks, I've been fighting a lung infection. And to sit and hear the doctor say to me in her office, Corinne, the mold mess up your whole immune system. You are going to take longer to heal, and we're going to have to be trying different drugs on you to make sure you heal. All I could have done is bend my head and cry. My best bets, my best friends are antihistamine. Because just to walk from here and there, I got to be so careful. My whole system, respiratory system, is messed up. And I think this is a good step. It's a first good step, but more need to be done. I thank you.
Thank you very much for that. We do have medical professionals here, and in the breakout sessions, we'll tackle this a little bit more in depth as well. But thank you so much for sharing that. Any other questions, feedback, comments, please? Yes. Okay, first the young lady here, and then the gentleman.
Good morning, all.
Morning.
My name is Erslin Bridgewater, Senior Community Development Officer in the Department of Community Development and Social Services. So we are responsible for the community centers around the island. So I must express how grateful I am that this dialogue was being set up so that we can come and hear about mold especially. Only yesterday, I received a message from an officer who said, "This is how my skin started itching and break out since I came in my office." So this dialogue today emphasizes the importance of regular professional cleaning. Yes, we may have cleaners who may come out on a daily basis, but more professional cleaning of government buildings, government offices, as well as our homes is very important. So I realize that some cleaning companies, such as the one that David owns, as part of the cleaning procedure include UV light treatment. How does this work to eliminate airborne contaminants? Thank you.
And thank you for your question. UV lights are becoming more and more prevalent as the climate changes. What the UV light does, it recreates the environment that is outside, in that the sun creates UV light that eliminates all sorts of living organisms that's in the air, whether it's good or bad, bacteria, viruses, germs, fungi, which mold falls within. UV light eliminates all of that. So what the creators have done, the manufacturers have done, is now created bulbs, and most of them come with timers now, that can recreate that same energy that the sun creates from outside and create it within your space. So when you use it, similar to the sunlight, if you overuse UV lights, it can be equally as destructive as the sun. So when we install those UV lights, we always tell persons, do not use a UV light in the same room that you are. Not that it's creating any kind of chemical component, it's because the light it creates, if you look at it long enough, it's going to burn your eyes. Having that light in contact with your skin for an extended period of time will damage your skin. Having that light on overnight in your house is going to be like having the sun directly inside your house for an extended period of time. So your furniture will fade, they will get cracked, your wall paint will fade, all those things there. So what UV light does, it recreates the effect of the sun on the inside of your building and kills all the living organisms that's in the space. So it's not healthy for plants, it's not healthy for pets for an extended period of time. So most recommendations are to have a UV light for half an hour and then break for a day or two, and then put it on for another half an hour, break for a day or two. So they are effective, but only effective if you use them the right way.
All right, thank you for that, David. There was a gentleman who wanted to ask a question. Yes.
Good day, everyone.
Good day.
Well, I have two questions, actually. My first question, if we haven't noticed, a lot of houses are built near the roads, whether it's slightly off the road or on the main road, especially in Nevis. And a lot of vehicles, they have exhaust issues. Since we now know that indoor air pollution is affected by the outdoor, how are we going to deal with, a lot of the vehicles that we have on the roads that are contributing to air pollution?
That's one. You said you had two? You want
me to ask the other one right away?
Yes, please.
Okay. The other question I have to ask is in regard to cleaning. So, we're instructed to clean as often as possible, which I'm sure we all do, but at the beginning, a lot of us learned that when we mix these chemicals, it could potentially be detrimental. So, although we receive the information on some of the mixtures and dealing with mold, like when we're doing general cleaning, is there some chemicals that you would like to let us know that we should not be mixing? For example, maybe not mix Clorox and Fabuloso or etc. Any further advice there for when we are cleaning so that we are doing it the correct way and not the incorrect way?
Thank you for that. I think I will ask Mr. Mike to maybe answer the first one, and David can answer your second question.
In terms of the vehicle pollutants, St. Kitts and Nevis does not have any emission guidelines at this time. Maybe it is the Bureau of Standards. We have started to look at emission guidelines for the cars, the vehicles and so forth that are on St. Kitts and Nevis. But at the moment, we don't have any. We rely on vehicle inspection and so forth to take care of that and currently we're doing a vehicle inspection standard that speaks to emissions. in them that the vehicle inspectors are supposed to be checking. Whether or not they effectively check them is a different thing, but that is what they're supposed to do. And just before Deberson go, it is generally known, for the second part of the question, it is generally known not to mix chemicals. This is on the label. Just don't mix chemicals. There's no acceptable where you mix this and mix that. Just don't mix chemicals unless you're doing something professional. But I will let you go ahead and answer that.
Yes, thank you, Anna. I guess the answer I'm going to give you will be echoing what Mr. Mike just said. In relation to chemicals, all chemicals that we buy in the stores, they have a standard where on their labeling, it has the directions for use and what you can mix or cannot mix. And in most cases, they say no mixing. It's only water, right? Coming to mind, some people are of the belief that if vinegar is good to clean this and Clorox is also good to clean this, if you combine them, it's going to clean it even better, which is absolutely false. Mixing, especially Clorox, is one that's well known. Mixing Clorox with any type of acid will create toxic fumes that will kill you. It will harm you, and if you use it over, even if you just mix it and leave it in the bucket there, the fumes it's creating will kill you. So in the first instance, we said do not mix chemicals. You do not mix chemicals, especially Clorox and any type of acid. So like vinegar, you don't mix those there. So the instructions on the labels dictate how you should use the solution that you have in front of you, and you should always use that as your guide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm back again. Mr. Mike, as the representative for the Bureau of Standards here, is it right for a two-story building to be upstairs is deemed unfit? No one is there because mold has taken over the building. There are signs of mold in the downstairs. People are crying out. The UV lights are being used at night to try and cover it up, because it seems to be like a lot of covering up when it comes to mold. Is it right for you to close the top of the building? Nobody could go in there, it's unfit, but you have people working in the downstairs. Mind you, it is not a wall structure where the flooring is between both of them. It is board. It is tiles, these ceiling tiles and what I call them, these steel structure. Is it safe for others? If I have to be the sacrificial lamb, I might as well take it because I don't have no money for no lung transplant. 1.7 million US for a single lung. Imagine a double lung. Not in my lifetime. So I might as well talk about that. Is it safe to have that?
Maybe I'll have Mr. Martin answer that instead of Mr. Mike.
Well, you directed your question to Mr. Mike, but
well, as the Bureau of Standards,
but
because
I can
they
say,
consider themselves to be the ones like carrying the mantle right now. But Mr. Martin, if you can, go right ahead.
But I can say, based on what you said, I'm going off of what you said. I do not have any other information of the case or anything. It is quite possible for upstairs to have different levels to downstairs. So that is quite possible. Also, you went on to say that there is some treatment being done, and as you heard the cleaning representative say, that that is effective. So based on what was said to me, I don't see anything wrong with it. But I do not know the results for either space.
I think you should check the building, the water department building.
You say okay. Morning. Could you hear me? All right. Good morning, everyone.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. All right, Jenny. All right, good day. My name is Carissa Roberts, and I serve as the project officer within the Ministry of Social Development and Gender Affairs. And I have the task of providing oversight for repairs and maintenance to the buildings that we are responsible for. So I work closely with Mrs. Bridgewater, who was at the mic earlier, and the ministry is responsible for over 20 buildings. Those include community centers. And I too am appreciative of this activity today, but I feel like there is an important component missing, and it is one of the components that actually makes us feel like we are doing a daunting task, and that is the finance issue. We go around, we see issues within the centers, we point them out, and then it sometimes appears as if nothing constitutes an emergency, because we are then asked, no matter what the situation is, whether it is from cutting a key to providing termite treatment, we are asked to solicit 3 quotations. And then within the 3 quotations, we have to go around to get 3 quotations just for the cheapest quotation to be highlighted. And then depending on the cost, you'll hear, so much money for this, yeah? This will have to be deferred. And then it goes from being deferred, so we might find termite in a door to termite in the entire structure, and then we have to close down. So yes, I understand the whole sustainable island state. No, I'm not asking any of the panelists a question, because the question is not for you. It's more of a comment for Dr. Nato, since he's closer to the ones that has the purse. What I understand the sustainable island state agenda, and we toss it around a lot, but sometimes it appears as if it is a national agenda, but it's not the Ministry of Finance's agenda to provide funding for the maintenance that we require. So situations where you have mold in a particular room can be dealt with if you provide the finance, so we don't have mold in an entire building, and then it is closed for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, and then we dress it back up just to have a ribbon cutting again to say that we did this. So I think we need to be a little more giving with the finances, especially for repairs and maintenance, because we don't want to continue having funerals for government employees for issues that could have been dealt with in remedial situations.
Yes, thank you for that. I am not sure about the funerals part. I cannot speak to that. I don't want to say I can't substantiate that part of it. But in terms of the finances, that is critically important, and that is true. And that is why since the administration took office and the Sustainable Island State agenda came up about transforming St. Kitts and Nevis into a sustainable island state, that we try to formulate the budget, the national budget, which is the process is going on right now for 2025, to include things like what you're speaking about. And we're looking at changing the system in terms of procurement and, like you talked about, obtaining quotes and how long that can take and how hard that can be. Sometimes you can't get 3 quotes just because of the services that are here. So those are things systematically that we are really trying to change, and really trying to not do a budget the same way we've done it in the past, because you have to do it in the context of what is happening now, especially with climate change. So I am hoping that you see some changes in that regard, and that's why this dialogue is very important, and in starting the conversation, but also leading to some actionable items. So that is something definitely that we're looking at, Ms. Roberts. So we'll have...
Hold on, before you move on to the next, I would like to add a comment to Ms. Roberts, because one of the reasons when our company started, what we looked at was the cost comparison between doing regular maintenance and doing remedial work. Regular maintenance in the long run costs way less than doing remedial work. Servicing your AC might cost you $150 every 2 months to service an AC, whereas to replace that same AC every year or every year and a half will cost you $2,700 to $3,000. So we recognize that persons who are buying a car, when you buy a brand new car, every 3 months, like regular clockwork, you bring it to the mechanic to ensure that it lasts long. And then not just government, but private individuals do the same thing where they invest $800,000, $1.5 million into a structure, an office building, and then they don't do anything to it until it starts to break down. And then the cost for doing the repairs seem scary, and they make the persons hesitate. But if you do regular maintenance, similar to what you're doing with the community development and the buildings that you have, the community centers, when you open those buildings, whether you get it by donation or by investment or whatever funding you get, if you put a regular maintenance program in place, you guarantee that it will last longer.
Thank you very much for that. So we have one more intervention. 1, 2. We have to proceed quickly. Okay, so I'll take 3 more. Sorry, I'll take these 2, and then we'll wrap up. Student and the final. Yeah. Okay, very quickly, please, so we can move to the next session. Mr. Mills.
Thank you very much, Capsec. Indeed, fitting conversation and dialogue. I don't have questions. I just have some comments.
Sure.
Or things I would say just to invoke the other half of the discussions. A lot of females in here, so your females understand what is a pantyhose, right? A pantyhose, safety. A stockings is a pantyhose, and you have pantyhose, you have one size fit all, correct? You could just, you have some one size fit all. You go from small to large, I think, and then you could buy the difference. In safety, you don't get that, okay? And sick building syndrome, and the reason why I'm saying this, I'm an occupational safety, health, and environment, not specialist, but that's the area that I studied in school. And I also did IOSH to manage safely, so I know how to manage safely. The conversation that we're having here, it's, I should say, pertinent to what I do and what I do on a daily basis. So sick building syndrome is a term that affects the building, but have different effects on individuals. We understand that? So you walk in the building, you may not feel sick. I walk in the building and I feel sick. Because my personal being, you understand, something about the building and its dynamics is not good for me. However, any testing in this building would say that everything is ambient, it is clean, it is clear. However, you go in there, react different to I being in the building. Yeah? That is sick building syndrome. So I just wanted us to get that there. That is why Mr. Mike kept putting it out there in that sense. Another thing I wanted to say before I go forward is there are 3 main reasons why we must manage safely. There's a moral obligation, a legal obligation, and a financial obligation. I'm saying this because safety really begins with the individual. If we understand there's no pantyhose for safety and there's no one size that fits all, it means therefore that safety begins with me. So if I walk in a room and the rug is affecting me, then I should eliminate myself from the room or else it can cost me, correct? And as much as I would say it would cost my employer, who is the government in the long run, if my health but if I die, I don't get to charge the government for anything. So the best thing for me to do is to remove myself from this space and tell the government or whomever my employer is so they could assess the place and determine what is happening so we can get it fixed. Now, that is what we're here for today, and that is why I wanted to come to the mic, to help us to invoke this sort of conversation and dialogue so we can get what is necessary to put a sustainable agenda in place where safety of the air quality that we breathe, whether it be inside or outside. Because from all the conversations I had today, you know what I got? That to be on the outside is more scarier than to be on the inside. I don't know what you got. But the cars are on the outside. The germs are on the outside. The chemicals that we interact with are on the outside. And guess what? The chemicals that we don't want to mix in our house, and we should not mix in our house, they mix every day in the environment on the outside. So it means, therefore, we need to learn how to live in the environment that we are living in. And the sooner we understand how to live in it safely, the better it is for all of us. We'll know how to treat the ACs in our rooms. We'll know the type of buildings we need to have, where we need to put the types of buildings, so forth. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Hallis Haley. Thank you, panelists, for your insightful comments and presentations. I'm curious about, because you know there's a lot of trade-offs when it comes to indoor air quality. And so I'm curious about natural ventilation versus air purification. I've had this ongoing argument in my head, in my own home for many years. So we have persons in my home that are sensitive, you know, allergic to dust, et cetera, et cetera. Am I better off increasing natural ventilation, or am I better off closing all the windows and putting in air purifiers? That's my question.
Maybe Mr. Fassel, you think you could tackle that one?
Hi, excellent question. Very good question, and the simple answer to this would be really and truly the quality of the external factors that will have an effect on the indoor environment that we inhabit, basically. So there is no straight answer for you, but it really depends on the quality of the spaces that we are comparing. Yeah?
Thank you. Yes.
To add to that, Dr. Saheli, it would depend on so many factors, because it would depend on where you reside, the type of environment and all of that. So,
Right,
and it also depends on the sensitivity of the person.
Of the person,
Yes.
of course, I agree. But I mean, closing all the windows and putting in an air purifier, I mean, you've all said that, I think our colleague just said now, what's coming in is out. I mean, this is all intertwined, this is all entangled. Am I not just better off throwing up all the windows and just letting it all come through? I think so.
No.
This is where I've landed, actually.
No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
So, for example, when we were in Taiwan, when I was in Taiwan, the air there was very bad.
Right.
It was better for you to have something mechanical inside to purify the air from the outside, and a lot of the times when you were outside, you would have things on your noses and so forth, just to keep out what is already outside, how the air is so bad. So in this instance, sorry, I'll let you go.
Yeah, but I
So
mean, we don't live in Taiwan. We don't really
Understand.
We don't have smog. We have Saharan dust, which is a problem, though.
Understand, but as Dr. Whittaker had pointed out, in some areas, you had seen that the particulate matter, PM10,
Right.
was high in certain areas.
Yeah, I live in that area,
right?
unfortunately.
So
yeah.
it's a matter of, do you come outside all the time, or do you open your rooms for these particulate matters to come in and continue
But
to...
in and out, presumably, if you have your home properly ventilated.
It's not an in and out, it is a suspension. So it comes in and it's suspended.
Then you start talking about Saharan dust and you're lost because that's 2.5. I mean, if you're talking about suspension, this stuff is not going anywhere.
What I would say,
Yeah.
if your outside air is clean, there is no harm or anything wrong with having with having the natural ventilation. If the outside air is bad, and so forth, you could have, or it may be beneficial to you to have mechanical ventilation inside.
All right,
Yes,
thank you.
there are offices with mechanical ventilation. No.
Okay, yes, and then...
Good afternoon, everyone. Lawrence Buddha, St. Ross University. First of all, I'd like to thank Dexter for showcasing Savannah East. I'm also proud to say that I worked on the design build team and I managed that building for 5 years before I moved to St. Kitts in 2019. So thanks very much for that, Dexter. Secondly, congratulations to the Bureau of Standards for successfully achieving the ISO 17025. That's a significant milestone. However, recently in the past, at Ross University, we've requested of the Bureau of Standards to do some air quality testing for us in some of our laboratories and the prep school. And we were informed that those resources and facilities were not available. So has that changed? That's my first question. And the second one is, where can we obtain an electronic copy of the local building code?
Mr. Mike?
In terms of the equipment, you're speaking of the gases and so forth, right?
Talking about doing an indoor air quality test for us to ascertain what our mole levels are, what our particulate levels are.
Okay.
Gaseous, I mean, we deal with formaldehyde, et cetera, et cetera. So for us to ensure that we are operating within safe standards, regularly we do testing.
Understand.
We try to engage local fare, but many times we are told that those services are not available. So we have to go to Kariri and other avenues internationally to get those services. But you stated that you now have a fully certified ISO quality lab on island. So I just want to make sure that that service is now available to us.
I'm happy that you mentioned the accreditation in ISO 17025 because part of the ISO 17025 accreditation stipulates that we must calibrate using third party. And that is where our equipment is at this time, why service is not available for particulate matter and the gases, not for mold. Currently, we are still active and doing the mold part of indoor air quality. Just for mold at this time. The equipment for gases and particulate matter is currently being calibrated so that we could give you the best accurate result as we can.
All right.
We will
Thank
have
you.
to ask the Ministry of
There was a second part, the building code.
In terms of your second question, the building code can be obtained from the Department of Physical Planning in the Ministry of Sustainable Development. However, I believe there's a cost recovery component attached to it. So I would suggest that you contact the department and they would advise you how best, whether it's a hard copy or a digital copy.
Thank you.
I am not certain if it's on the ministry's website, but it's not as yet. So it's something that we will address.
All right. So I think we had two interventions. Yes.
Okay. Good day. My name is David Walters. I am a student of the Clarence Fitzgerald Bryant College. I have two main questions / suggestions based on the presentations that we went through today. Now, as for when there are new homeowners trying to go into a neighborhood, whether it's renting or building a new house, would it be possible to enforce regulations on how they build or maybe renovate those houses so that it wouldn't negatively impact the air quality of that neighborhood? Say, for example, you have an area of low-lying one-story houses, and then suddenly a bunch of homeowners want to build 2, 3-story houses. Would it be possible for, say, for there to be people in place to tell them, hey, that would negatively impact the air quality here, we can't recommend that you do that? And as for pre-existing homeowners, would it be possible? Because one thing that, sure, everybody wants to reuse, reduce, recycle, everybody wants to keep the place clean, but cost is a big thing, and money is not readily available to everybody these days. So whether it be in the form of reducing the cost of first-time installation for certain vents or different projects that would improve the air quality in a house, or with rewards such as like how Flow right now, I believe they're doing something where if you sign up for their internet, you get it free for the rest of the year. Something like that, where say, if you install a new ventilation system, you get 1 free repair, to encourage homeowners who already have houses and may not have proper internal air quality measures taken in place, to further encourage them to adopt these measures. And then as for my second question, where if we have, say, in a neighborhood, they're the house that, according to the community, nobody has lived in for 5+ years. It's starting to stink. There may be trash that's left over. Maybe it's an old abandoned house, and animals are using it as home, leaving feces and other things that may impact the air quality. Would it be possible for the city to then come in and say, if nothing is done by a certain time period, we will demolish the house to allow for better airflow in that area?
Thank you for those two questions. I will let Mr. Hazel answer your first question, and then I think I will take your second question. Yes.
Okay. Usually in where you're doing renovations, there is minor renovations and there's major renovations. Moving from a single-story structure to a two-story structure that will be considered as a major change and would require a building application and approval by the Development Control and Planning Board. The typical rule of thumb is that you allow for one elevational difference, so that if you have a single-story building, a two-story building will be permitted adjacent to it, provided that setback requirements are met and so on. But usually in the application review process, consideration is given to public health in terms of ventilation in particular.
Okay.
On your second question, in terms of abandoned lots, that is a significant problem in St. Kitts and Nevis. In short, a lot of these lots, they may be abandoned, but they are tied up in a lot of family disputes and other legal issues. And at present, the government is looking at how we can deal with that legislatively. We are not quite there yet in terms of either repossessing, demolishing, like you said, but right now we can't just go and demolish somebody's property. As I said again, a lot of it is tied up in family issues. Some persons here, they don't live here, and so forth. So there are a lot of legalities involved in that, but that's something we definitely are looking at, especially if it presents a public health hazard. And we've seen that used for actually criminality as well, right? As a hideout for weapons and other things, nefarious activities. But I know environmental health deals with some of that. You want to jump in and say something? Samantha?
Yes, in response to the empty and abandoned premises, as long as there is an owner that can be identified, the health department will do legal proceedings. We'll serve the person an official notice. If they do not clean it within that time, they'll go to court. But with everything that is legal, if we serve the cousin of the owner, and this person is not the named owner, as he said, we have issues where people have passed away. They do not have a will. So the owner of the premises was John Taylor, but John Taylor has 4 children. The land is neither of their names. So when they go to court, we have issues. So that's one of the issues we have. We have had several discussions on office scale and ministerial scale of cleaning these premises ourselves and fixing the cost to land and house tax. But as he said, that is not something that is in place. And sometimes we have lands and we have workers and we say, just even go to the front to cut back the grass and bush from the drain. And then that's when you know who the owner is, that you get a call, who is on my land. But this person is not here to be served or for us to deal with them in any way legally.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin. So one more intervention, and then we really have to continue. Sorry? Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Trista Watley-Stennett. In 2014, I was diagnosed with mold, aspergillus, however you pronounce it, fumigatus mold, from being in the old Development Bank building. Bureau of Standards was called. It was tested. They indicated that my workspace was safe. However, being tested, I was 32% having the mold infestation in my body. I went through a lot of struggles. As I stand here, I could have had a pimple, a boil, what we'll call it, growing right now, and then it would bust open into a flesh mold. My face was covered significantly. I had to do laser surgery in terms of retaking them off to get my face looking young again, even though it mightn't look young. But anyway, 10 years later, I have been diagnosed with it again. This time it is 6.5. Even though I'm happy it is only 6.5, I am still sad to the fact that I contracted again. Now, in August 26th of August 2024, that's when I proceeded on leave. I was out of the building for 8 weeks. Even though I had symptoms, had to take medication and so forth for 2 weeks because they can't give me anything more than 2 weeks, otherwise it could implicate my kidneys and my lungs. I didn't have any itching, any burning of the skin, nothing. My face was discolored. It still is, not entirely cleared, but it was the best I felt being out of the building where I was working. I returned on Monday, and Monday was good. In the evening when I got home in the afternoon, I felt my face, my body, my Brazil line. That's where most, as Mr. Mike could tell you, it would affect. My panty line, my pants line, whatever touches my body, that is where the itching would eventually happen. I'm not in the building today. Yesterday I had itching, so I went out of the building. Now, we are housed, we're Mr. Mike and most of you up there, with the exception of probably the gentleman for the board control, knows where I'm housed. But it is where his home is, where the building code resides. So he should know the building I'm speaking about. Now, inside there, we have one door entrance to go in. We have fancy windows, but none of them can open. We have a main door, 3 main doors to the front, leading to different parts of the building. When we go into the building, sometimes I feel like I'm suffocating. Now, this question, whoever wants to answer could answer. But Mr. Mike, you could answer, because the Bureau of Standards did testing, and this was the result. In the director's office, 460 spores, which you indicate that anything below 500 is normal. But I find 460 is way above the normalcy, because it is too close for you to say the area space is normal. In the general space, it is 220 spores. Where I sit, 0%. But guess what? We share the same airspace. Well, I share the same airspace as the open area, as the general office. The only thing that I am just behind in a cubicle. Nothing goes up to the roof. So therefore, which means I am breathing the same airspace that they have. So I am asking the question, was the test done correctly? Was it, I'm sorry to say, main trust it. In 2014, I was told my workspace had 0%, but I suffered. I suffered. The discoloration of my skin, this is the best my skin has ever looked. I keep taking medications over the years. Over the years. Now, the building I am in, I was told, and even when persons came from health, that there is a problem with the airflow system. The AC is in there, nothing goes back out, except for when you open the doors. If the building codes are not up to standard, you indicated that y'all would make sure that these things are up to date. If persons are not in compliance, what do? We can't suffer as staff members. I cannot suffer anymore. It hurts. Imagine, my sugar levels went way up. my pressure went way up, and I couldn't understand my cholesterol. Everything was out of whack. And it wasn't before. In 2014, that's when it started going out of control. I got it back under control. Since last year, I've told inside my workplace that sometimes when I go in the main building, I can't breathe properly. So right now, I refuse to go anywhere in the main building. I'm going back out to work. I don't know if I'm going to be there for much longer because of how my body feels. Mr. Mill said something. It might affect you, and it might not affect me. Just like how persons would be allergic to smoke, and it might not affect me. There are different persons with different levels. You don't know how my immune system weakened because of this mold. And then, the same building, when rain came, or anytime rain come, in the elevator room, it used to rain and water coming like a waterfall. And every time we complain about that, nobody answered. You know what the building did? What they did? They locked the building door. Health department know about it. Health department knows about that, and that's what I believe is the root of the problem for that building. I am passionate because David said it's $150 every 2 weeks of service. But every 2 weeks I have to go pay $100 for doctor. My medication is $300 and something. It hurts my pocket and it hurts my heart. And that building needs looking after. And I want to say it again. It hurts my heart, it hurt me. And no, I might be chastised for this. I could care less because my health is more important. I have a 24-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a 6-year-old. The 20 and the 24 could look after themselves, but my 6-year-old can't. And it hurts to see when people are gonna say that you're telling lies. Your test results are being sent to Barbados. So how are you telling lies? Not only that, it is not me alone. 4 staff members, 4 has been diagnosed with the same mold. The same mold, but nothing is wrong. Nothing is wrong. Bureau of Standards, nothing is wrong. Good afternoon.
Mr. Natter.
Sorry. No, hold on. We have to move on. We have breakout sessions. You can express what you need to express there. We have to wrap up.
Oh, you have breakout sessions?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You'll be able to express there. So at this time, I want to thank the persons who were viewing online. We're going to end the live stream now as we move into the breakout sessions and have some more pointed discussions. On the tables, so again, thank you everyone who joined online. On the tables before you, or where you're sitting, you will see some color-coded pieces of colored paper. Please look at the slip of paper that you received this morning and go to a table that has that same color. So if you had a dark blue, you look for the dark blue strip, the table with that. We want 10 persons to a table, please.